guys, I'm back, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make your mood board in Photoshop. So it's quite similar process, but there are some differences from Illustrator. First up, I go into Photoshop. I use Photoshop CC 2019, but you can use any Photoshop version from CS4 and up. So I go to File, New, and I set up my artboard, which will be the same size as in the Illustrator video, 1080 by 1080, because I usually share my mood boards on Instagram, and this is the size that Instagram supports. I leave the resolution for 72 and the color mode to RGB because I don't plan to print this. I plan to keep it only in digital format. But if you want to print it, you can set this to 300 and the color mode to CMYK. So I have my artboard and I have to set up my guides again, quite similar to how I did it in Illustrator. You can either drag and drop your guide starting from the ruler, or you can go into View, New Guide, and add the exact pixels. So I know that I want a guide 100 pixel from the side, and the same way on the top 100 horizontally. It's always calculated from the upper left corner, so it's 100 pixel from the top side and 100 pixel from the left side. And when I want to make on the other part, I need to write in 980. That's 100 less than my actual full artboard. So I have it at the bottom, guide, vertical. So I have my side guidelines, which tell me where my white space will be around my mood board. Next up, I also want to divide the inner part into quarters, which will help me to make the structure very neatly. So for this, I can go and create a rectangle and choose shape. So actually a square shape. I just click here and say 440 by 440. 440 and by 440 is exactly the half of this area, because this big area is 800 by 800. I just make it into a different color so that you can see, and I pull it up to the corner. It will snap to the guides, and then I grab a guide and pull it here, grab another guide and pull it here. Now I make it even smaller, Ctrl T, I make it 50% smaller, so it will be 220 by 220. Again, I put it in the corner. And this way I have all my guidelines and I can get rid of this rectangle. So I want to set up the spaces, the placement for my images. I will draw my first one. Actually, I can just click and type 440 by 440 for my biggest image, and I change the color again. If you want to change the color of a shape that you draw, you just double click on the thumbnail of that shape on the layers panel, and you can pick whatever color you want. But this is not the final color, you will place photos inside this later on. So this is the first one I have. I just checked my Illustrator. In Illustrator I set it up like this. So I have two small and a tall image. So next up I'm going to make a 220 by 220 here. I make it a little bit different, pink, and then I just copy it. I press Option or Alt on Windows and drag it to the other placement. And then I make one that's 220 by 440. So this is how I start placing my squares, the same way as I have them in Illustrator, or I can do it differently also. So next up, you'll have to put these squares in order. So this is good. This will be my image 1. This is also a good place. Image 2. So I just changed the names of the layers. In order I know which one is which. So this is going down, also goes down, in order. Yeah, this is going to be image 3. Image 3. You just have to click on the name twice to change the name. So I changed all the layer names, but these are still just regular shapes, which means it's not so easy to insert my photos. I can of course make clipping mask, kind of similar way how I did it in Illustrator, but there's a better mode to do this. So I will turn these shapes into smart objects. I go on the first layer, right click and convert to smart object. Same way I will do the second one, third one, and so on. So I turned all my layers into smart object, and I show you what it will do. So I want to insert my first image into the image 1 placement. I go on this layer and I double click on the thumbnail, and I just hide the guides. It brings up my big rectangle. And now I just navigate to the images, and I have to pick the right one. This was the right one, and just place it. Save it, Command S or Control S, and it's there. Same way I go to the next one. Beautiful packaging, here it is. So I open up Photoshop and drag and drop my image, size it up to the right size, save it, Command S or Control S, and it's there. And I will do the same steps on all of the placements. I open up the Smart Object and I insert the right image I want at that placement. So as you can see, I inserted all my images inside the Smart Objects. And now I'm ready to create the dividing frames. For this, I turn back on the guides so that they are visible, and I choose the line tool. I set it up for white fill and 10 pixel weight, and I just start drawing my separator lines. The guides will help you to position them at the right place, but of course you can always zoom in and move them around a little bit if you feel they are not at the right position. So now I have my mood board with the images, and I can create the little circles for my colors. But before I do so, I want to group all these shapes together. So from shape 1 to shape 11, which are these frames, I just press Command G or Control G to group them, and I name this frame. It's really important to keep your Photoshop files organized, otherwise the more and more layers you add, it just becomes a whole mess. I also group my images, Control G, images, and now I will create my color palette. So I just click here and I say 60 by 60. And I double click here and pick a color. And I copy it. And I copy these two. When you copy and you press the Shift, the newer Photoshop versions bring you up this very handy information. So I see here that my placements are 20 pixels from each other. And then I can just place it in the middle. And I group it. This will be my color palette. I also like to put them in order, so this one is the color 5. This one is color 1, color 2, color 3, and color 4. So I just put them in the right order. And when I want to pick colors, I can either add the codes or just pick something from my mood board, because this doesn't have to be your final color palette. It's just something to start your branding process. You will refine the color palettes later on during your branding. So I just like to make an initial idea of how I imagine the colors for the brand. So the first color will be this darker one, even darker here. Again, double click on the layers thumbnail. And because this is a shape layer, when you double click on the thumbnail, it brings up the color picker. Don't forget there's difference between the layers, so when you double click on the thumbnail on a smart object, it will open up your smart object in a new window, just the way we did the images. While when you double click on a shape layer's thumbnail, it will bring up the color picker. When I define color palettes, I usually like to add one dark color, which will be great for text and headlines. I like to add 2 signature colors. In this case, this is the orange and the pink, and 2 neutrals, which are going to be great for backgrounds. And of course, as a final step, we can add the text. It's really easy. You just choose the text type tool, click wherever you want to add your text, just choose the right font. I think Montserrat is a really nice font if you want something modern. Montserrat Light. Set the right size. And here on the character panel, which you can open up from Windows and Character, you can make it into all uppercase, change the distance between the characters, change the color. And as I did in the previous video in Illustrator, I can also add some information here at the bottom, where I write the basic moods that I want to achieve. So feminine, soft, sophisticated, spring, nature. These can be adjectives, any kind of nouns, or even your company's values. And then I just place it in the middle. This is it. Don't forget to save your work at File Save when you're done. And whenever you want to change any of the images, you just have to go and open up the image, double click on the thumbnail, and change it. So like, for example, I move it around, I save it, and then it's moved around. This is how easy it is to do your mood board with smart objects inside Photoshop. Last but not least, there's also a pack of free templates coming out with this post. So if you want to save time and skip the first step in this tutorial, you can just scroll down, access these files, and after download, you will have 3 Photoshop templates and 3 Illustrator templates. For the Photoshop templates, when you open them up, this is what you will see. So as you can see, I already positioned where the images go, and they are already smart objects. So if you want to add an image, you can just open up the images group, double click on the thumbnail and place your image here. So for example, I place my image. I size it to the correct size, and then I save my smart object with Command S or Control S. Close it, and as you can see, it's included in the mood board, and you can go ahead with the rest of the images the same way. Of course, you can also edit the color palette here the same way as we did before. You just open the color palette group and double click on the color 1 thumbnail, and you just pick the right color that you need for your mood board. You can either pick it with the color picker, or you can write your hex code, RGB or CMYK codes into this panel. So this is how easy it is to edit the pre-made templates. You can build your own, or you can get these freebies. It's your choice, but I hope you like this video. Thanks for watching.